Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. My friends, those of you in the United States and also those of you around the world as well, and I'll explain why I tie you guys into this. Welcome to Biden's economy. Welcome to the economy of inflation, of unemployment, of reduced buying power, which is essentially inflation, of exceedingly high gas prices. Welcome to the economy currently in the United States being shepherded by Joe Biden on the global scale, given the fact that the United States is a massive exporter and a massive economic machine, which puts so much into the rivers of the global economy. You guys are experiencing Biden's economy as well. Yes, my friends. Inflation is at a 40-year high. It's the highest it's been since 1981. Our current economic conditions are beginning to mirror that of the stagflation that ravaged the pockets in the capital of generations in the 70s and 80s, which means stagflation meaning low unemployment, low buying power, and increasingly high inflation, increasingly high prices. In fact, Ray Dalio, a billionaire investor, is warning. He's amongst many other commentators who are warning of stagflation. And so, my friends, the question that I like to ask is twofold. Number one, how did we get here? And number two, was this a necessary course of events? So let us begin. So, my friends, Biden's economy, the price of gas, which is really hurting many Americans right now, which sits just below $5 a gallon, was rising ever since last year. It had been rising for quite a while, although it was rising steadily. When the war between Ukraine and Russia happened, the price of gas accelerated. Now, it didn't simply accelerate because the war began and the war happened. The already rising price of gas had several pressures put onto it externally, artificially, by Western governments. And this is the first cornerstone of Biden economics. Sanction in the name of pursuing virtue. Oh yes, the United States did 7 waves of sanctions to crush the Russian economy in an attempt to show Vladimir Putin that they disapproved immensely of his invasion of Ukraine. Now, of course, when they did these sanctions, there was already suspicion that these sanctions were not just going to hurt the Russian oligarchs who are funding Putin and Putin himself, which they haven't, by the way. More on that in a second. But these sanctions were also predicted to hurt the Russian people and the people of the West and the people of any other country that is not a backwater nation, which is connected to the global economy, and that is essentially almost every country on the face of this earth. And my God, did it hurt. At first, the ruble dropped to less than the value of a penny when we first slapped all the sanctions, the West slapped all the sanctions onto Russia. But then there is one inescapable fact, one inescapable commodity that no one, no matter how resilient their virtue is, can escape. And that is the fact that you have to fuel your cars, you have to be able to maintain supply chains, and therefore you must have petroleum, you must have gasoline. And this is why the ruble right now is performing at a 7-year high against the dollar. It is up 35% against the US dollar. So our sanctions, which initially hit the ruble, but then Putin backtracked and used his gold reserves, his minimal debt, and other physically responsible practices that he had been doing since 2014, since he invaded Crimea because he was making these sanctions, used all of them and capital controls to bounce back from the effects of the Western sanctions, whereas the West itself, those sanctions backfired in our face, and now the United States dollar, again, the ruble was performing 35% against the United States dollar. And the reason why Russia's ruble was doing so well is because of their vast energy reserves, their vast petroleum reserves, which countries like Germany and the European Union as a whole, which one of the biggest importers of Russian energy, rely on. In fact, the Chancellor of Germany, who has been urged to completely stop buying Russian energy, said that if he were to completely ban it right now immediately, it would cause a recession, and it would. When your biggest supply of a particular product coming from a particular place is banned, there is no other obvious place to get it without incurring some kind of cost, and even in the short term, the cost to you is going to be crippling. This is basic economics, and a simple understanding of the foundations of supply and demand would reveal this truth to anyone who cares to listen. But the Biden administration doesn't care to listen. So not only did the reliance on Russian energy boost the ruble, but Russian capital controls, which essentially said that you have to Russian energy companies, that you have to convert your excess revenue that you get from selling petroleum, convert those into rubles. So not only is the price of energy, which benefits Russia, since it's producing all the energy, this is a scheme, guys. It's a scheme. It's a tragedy and a travesty. You put a sanction on energy, you ban Russian gas, you restrict a lot of Western countries' ability to get this, including the United States, the UK, and other countries like that. But the one who produces it benefits from not only a price surge, but benefits from economic wizardry, economic determinism that it can use to convert the price surge into more of a benefit for it, which has allowed Putin to go at a rate of $20 billion a month and continue his war effort with very little sweat off his brow. Now, of course, Russia has propped up its economy. It is largely artificial because if Europe were to completely ban all imports of Russian gas completely, the Russian economy would eventually tank, although it would be able to weather that as well, according to some analyst expectations. But this is simply part of the point. The point is this. Several Western countries, such as the United States particularly, have suffered in the name of punishing Russia, whereas Russia is sitting on mountains upon mountains upon mountains upon mountains of wealth and prosperity because they are the ones who made the smart choices. So whereas you're left with high gas prices, Russia has low inflation, low unemployment, and a roaring war effort that is expected to ramp up in the immediate future. Welcome to the Biden economy. Are you enjoying it yet? It gets worse. It 100% gets worse. Russia is also hijacking over 700 plus companies from the West, fly to Russia, including McDonald's and Apple. Russia is hijacking their assets, which are still in the country, and converting those into making their own goods and into capital for their citizens. So not only are Western companies having to economize, which means raising prices, which means cutting services, due to the fact that they have lost a particular percentage of their market share in different country, their assets are also being used to fuel the so-called problem, the so-called cause of our current economic situation. Welcome to the Biden economy, because those companies, some of them self-sanctioned, that means some of them left voluntarily, but a lot of them left because they saw the looming specter of American sanctions about to bite down on the Russian bear, and look what happened. That specter bit down on itself. Welcome to the Biden economy. Now, these sanctions, Biden would try to craft, or the West generally tried to craft these smart sanctions that wouldn't impact the Russian economy, so a Russian population rather, but only the oligarchs. So what they did is they left exceptions for certain food and gas items so that the Russian population could get it. The problem is when you make firms incredibly risk aware and you restrict their ability to generally trade in a certain area, the commercial context around being able to send in commercial goods and humanitarian goods becomes incredibly complicated, because then firms are afraid of potentially breaching the sanctions and having to pay a hefty penalty. This is why a lot of banks will simply not even not even facilitate Russian trades of energy. Again, welcome to the Biden economy. Now, my friends, one who is economically wise would realize that putting a sanction on anything is not going to be a good thing, especially if that thing that you're putting the sanction on is actually something that you bring in more than any other source. The United States, it is often said, his imports of Russian petroleum, that means unfinished oils, unrefined oils, was below 10%. It was around 8% in 2021. But The United States import of gasoline from Russia and other refined petroleum was at 21%. The United States imported more petroleum, more gasoline from Russia than any other country. Then Biden goes ahead and bans that from the American economy, and of course that causes a supply chain shortage because now all these companies in America that are relying on that and also rely on the unrefined so they can refine it themselves have to go and economize. That jacks up gas prices, and then what happens? Everything else suffers. Once again, welcome to the Biden economy. There were an array of economic factors that were already pretty bad. And of course, the war in Ukraine, with the Ukrainian farmers having to take up guns and not do any cultivation, made food crisis and food insecurity bad. But restricting the flow of products into a certain area exacerbates those pre-existing factors and makes all those matters worse. Welcome to the Biden economy. All of it didn't happen because of him, but it's getting worse because of him. And so what has Mr. Biden's response to all of this been? He wrote a very stern letter to several big U.S. producers of oil. And he said, it is your duty not to make profits off of this, even though the prices are going up because you have restricted amount of supply going in. It is your duty not to make profits off of this. You need to increase production and get more gas out there. Essentially what the Biden letter said. This letter shows a stark misunderstanding and ignorance of supply and demand. Well, oil companies and any other company can only work with what they have. And when you quite literally ban them from being able to use one of the largest sources of natural gas, petroleum, oil, all that good stuff that goes into gas and goes into energy as well in general, then they're going to have to economize and they're going to have to figure out how to make up the difference. And the point is right now, they don't have... The sanctions coupled with regulatory restrictions that Biden is not willing to budge on, such as the unwillingness to provide drilling leases and the unwillingness to allow 3 offshore drilling leases that have already been approved to go forward in the name of environmentalism. This is what Biden is doing. He is effectively handicapping the economy by sanctioning a product out of the way and then not allowing companies to take necessary actions that will allow them to correct his own stupid mistakes. And then he's asking them, what's wrong with you? Again, a lack of introspection is deadly and a reality that requires introspection. Welcome to the Biden economy, my friends. Oh, and by the way, it's worth recognizing that the Biden administration, the officials within the Biden administration, according to Business Insider, also recognize the inexplicable pain the sanctions have wrought on the American economy and have even been encouraging American firms to illicitly buy Russian products in defiance of their own sanctions. If sanctions were sound economic measures, which they are not in any principled way at all, but if they were, why is the administration that is supporting the sanctions also trying to quite obviously and actively defy them? Because once again, sanctions are taxes on productive persons, oftentimes for the actions of someone who has no relation to them and they are therefore unjust. Welcome to the Biden economy, where the economic engineers can't even stick with their own project. And of course, now the gas tax. He wants to completely suspend the gas tax, which I think on principle is great. I think taxation by principle is expropriation, it's stealing, it's wrong, it's immoral. Having said that, economic measures that are taken in a vacuum and are not taken with consideration of other factors that could affect the situation you're trying to affect are not wise in nature. Getting rid of the gas tax holiday would be a wonderful thing. I don't care if people screech over roads not being able to be built. The roads shouldn't be built by the government in the first place. In fact, the deficiency and dilapidation of our roads in this country have a confluence of factors. One of them is their management by public sources. different topic. But regardless of all of that, if you get rid of the gas tax holiday, but you're not going to suspend the sanctions, then what you're going to do, as many people have noted, or rather they noted about the gas tax holiday, you're going to drive up demand since it'll reduce the price of gasoline a little bit lower than what it is right now, although not substantially much. But supply is still restricted because, again, of the regulatory pressures that companies are under and the restriction of trade with Russia and the high prices as well. You're going to still have the problem even if you lower one of the many cost factors that go into that problem. You have to be willing to lower that cost factor, get rid of the gas tax, but also be willing to let companies trade with Russia again so they can get oil. If you only do one and not the other, you're not going to be in a better spot. You're going to remain in the same spot you have been throughout the duration of this chaos. Again, welcome to the Biden economy, where economic mismanagement is blamed on corporations because that is a convenient progressive talking point. Welcome to the Biden economy. David Stockman, back in the Reagan administration, he pushed for cutting entitlements, and cutting taxes and all that kind of stuff. But he mentioned that if you cut taxes, but you don't cut entitlements, then the tax cuts will be offset by the continued spending that you're doing with entitlements. It's the same exact thing with the gasoline situation. Once again, welcome to the Biden economy, where a dictator engaging in economic wizardry can outsmart a group of people who are supposedly educated in this stuff, can outsmart one of the wealthiest, one of the most prosperous nations on the face of this earth through engaging in internal strategy, through doing physical things like paying off the debt, doing things that the United States itself refuses to do. Welcome to the Biden economy. So what's the broader point with all this, my friends? The broader point is this, my friends. The American people are being stolen from. The Biden administration is engaging in expropriation with the sanctions, with the regulatory burdens besetting oil companies, and with the immensely high gas prices that come from that. And then Biden saying all that has to do with Putin, when in all reality, his own policies have created a context in which these kind of conditions can flourish. All of this stuff constitutes expropriation and punishment of the American people for a conflict that they didn't ask for, or rather they're not really a party to, but that this government has decided to be a party to. Yes, a lot of people support Ukraine, but it is significantly different to support Ukraine and to support the blanket taxation and punishment of American firms' ability to do business with other productive people in other places. One is a statement of political principle supporting Ukraine, and the other is a violation of the morality of interpersonal relationships. They are two separate things that happen to be conflated because a lot of political minds, a lot of mediocre political minds conflate things that are close to each other. We call this proximity ethics. Now, that's not a product of the Biden economy. Unfortunately, it's just a product of contemporary political thing. So, my friends, the economy you see right now has a lot to do with many other things. The war does not help it. But economic policies that try to engineer a certain result, they don't help either. That's what the sanctions are doing. That's what the regulations on drilling are doing. And the effects of all this are both seen and unseen, to borrow a phrase from Frederick Bastiat. What you see is high gas prices. What you don't see is the increased, or you don't see immediately, is the increased price in your next Amazon purchase because shipping prices are high. What you see are high gas prices. What you don't see is the higher price of anything that uses synthetic materials like clothing, because once again, petroleum is used to make some of those things. What you see are high gas prices. What you don't see are the jobs being denied to people because high gas prices are a forecast, a predictor of a bad economy, and so businesses are preemptively economizing. What you see are high gas prices, but what you don't see is the fact, the huge opportunity cost that is being taken from people, all in the name of punishing someone whom they have no relation to, all in the name of punishing someone whom they have no business with. Punishing someone else for another's mistakes is the height of injustice, and that is the linchpin of the Biden economy. Once again, welcome to the Biden economy. Think on it, my friends. I love you guys so much. If you love me, please be sure to go to Patreon, patreon.com/officialcwatson. Please go to PayPal, officialcwatch@gmail.com. Please be sure to go to my Discord, which will be in the comment section down below. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this video. My friends, this message is dynamite. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive.